On my business card, I am a corporate president. In my mind, I am a game developer. But in my heart, I am a gamer.
Before Nintendo became the gaming giant we all know today, it actually started way back in 1889. Not with video games, but with playing cards. Over the years, Nintendo transformed from a small card company in Japan into one of the most creative and influential names in gaming history. From handhelds you could slip into your pocket, to home consoles that changed the way we play, Nintendo's journey is full of surprises, fun facts, and iconic moments. So, let's take a trip through time and see how Nintendo evolved into the legend it is today. Welcome to Hello Game Channel. Our story truly begins in 1980 with a simple but revolutionary little device, the Game & Watch.
マイクロコンピューターを使ったゲームウォッチ。ゲームをしないときはデジタル式クォーツ時計です。
Designed by Gunpei Yokoi, it was a tiny handheld console with just one game and a built-in clock. That's why it's called Game & Watch. Back then, portable gaming wasn't really a thing yet, so this pocket-sized gadget felt like magic. Each model had its own game, from Donkey Kong to Fire, and players could take it anywhere. It was the start of Nintendo's love for portable fun. Fun fact, Gunpei Yokoi got the idea after seeing a bored businessman playing with his calculator on a train. That single moment inspired the future of handheld gaming. Just a few years later, Nintendo took the next big step. The family computer, or Famicom for short. When it launched in Japan in 1983, it brought arcade-quality games straight into people's homes. 2 years later, the system reached the rest of the world as the Nintendo Entertainment System, or NES, and it completely changed the gaming industry. After the great video game crash of 1983, many thought gaming was over. But NES revived everything, introducing classics like Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, and Metroid. For many players, this was where their love for gaming truly began. Fun fact, the NES helped rebuild the entire gaming market, and Nintendo used a clever seal of quality to prove their games were trustworthy. Something no one had done before. In 1989, Nintendo changed the world once again, this time fitting it right in your hands. The Game Boy wasn't the first handheld console ever made, but it was the one that truly defined portable gaming. It was simple, durable, and packed with fun, with games like Tetris, Pokémon Red and Blue, and The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening. The Game Boy became a worldwide phenomenon. It proved that you didn't need fancy graphics, just great games you could play anywhere, anytime. Fun fact, the original Game Boy was so tough that one unit even survived a bombing during the Gulf War. And it still works to this day, proudly displayed at Nintendo's museum. Almost a decade after the original Game Boy, Nintendo decided it was time to add a splash of color. By the early 90s, Nintendo was ready to level up again. In Japan, it was called the Super Famicom, and around the world, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, or simply the SNES. This 16-bit console took gaming to a whole new level, with colorful graphics, rich music, and unforgettable adventures. Titles like Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, and Donkey Kong Country defined what classic gaming really means. It was the golden age of 2D games, and Nintendo was leading the way. Fun fact, The Super Famicom in Japan had a smooth, rounded design, while the Western SNES looked more boxy, but both delivered the same timeless fun. In 1996, Nintendo made another giant leap with the Nintendo 64, their first true 3D console. For the first time ever, players could explore worlds in full 3D, running and jumping freely in every direction. Games like Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time completely redefined what video games could be. The N64 also introduced the iconic analog stick, a game-changer that became a standard for modern controllers. It wasn't just about better graphics, it was about freedom, exploration, and imagination. Fun fact, the Nintendo 64 was named after its 64-bit processor, and the controller's design, with its unique three-pronged shape, became one of the most recognizable in gaming history. In 1998, the Game Boy Color arrived, small, bright, and full of life. For the first time, players could experience their favorite games in color, and developers could push handheld gaming even further. It was still compact and simple, but now it felt more modern and exciting. With hits like Pokémon Gold and Silver, The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages, and Tetris DX, the Game Boy Color became another massive success. Fun fact, the Game Boy Color was fully backward compatible, meaning you could still play all your old black and white Game Boy games on it, but now with added colors on screen. In 2001, Nintendo took handheld gaming to the next level with the Game Boy Advance. Sleek, powerful, and fully in color, it was like a mini Super Nintendo in your hands. The GBA delivered bigger worlds, deeper stories, and stunning 2D graphics for its time. With legendary titles like Pokémon Ruby and Sapphire, Metroid Fusion, and The Legend of Zelda, the Minish Cap, the Advance proved that portable gaming could be just as epic as console gaming. Fun fact, the Game Boy Advance could even connect to the Nintendo GameCube, letting players unlock special content or use the GBA as a second screen. An early hint of what Nintendo would later explore with the Wii U. In 2001, Nintendo entered the next generation with the GameCube, a small, colorful box packed with big ideas. It was Nintendo's first console to use discs instead of cartridges, and its compact cube design made it instantly recognizable. The GameCube delivered some of Nintendo's most beloved titles, like Super Smash Bros. Melee, Metroid Prime, and The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. Even though it didn't sell as much as its rivals, the GameCube became a fan favorite thanks to its creativity and charm. Fun fact, the GameCube's mini optical discs were just 8 centimeters wide, and you could even carry the console with one hand using its built-in handle. In 2003, Nintendo gave the Game Boy Advance a stylish upgrade, the Game Boy Advance SP. With its sleek clamshell design, built-in rechargeable battery, and a front-lit screen, it felt like a true evolution of the handheld experience. You could finally play your favorite games anywhere, even in the dark. The SP kept all the power of the original Advance, but added the convenience and polish that made it one of the best-looking handhelds ever made. Fun fact, the SP in Game Boy Advance SP stands for Special, and it was the first Nintendo handheld that could fold shut to protect its screen, a design later echoed in the Nintendo DS. In 2004, Nintendo completely reimagined handheld gaming with the Nintendo DS. For the first time ever, a Nintendo console had 2 screens, one for gameplay and one touch screen for new kinds of interaction. It wasn't just a new device, it was a new way to play. The DS let players tap, draw, and even speak into a microphone, creating experiences that felt fresh and personal. With hits like Nintendo's Mario Kart DS and The Legend of Zelda, Phantom Hourglass, the DS became a worldwide phenomenon. Loved by kids, parents, and even people who had never played games before. Fun fact, DS officially stands for Dual Screen, but Nintendo also said it meant Developer's System, highlighting its goal to inspire creativity and innovation. In 2005, Nintendo released the final evolution of the Game Boy, the Game Boy Micro. Tiny, sleek, and stylish, it was the smallest Game Boy ever made, barely the size of a credit card. Despite its size, it could still play every Game Boy Advance game with bright, colorful visuals. The Micro wasn't about power, it was about design and personality. It was Nintendo's elegant farewell to the legendary Game Boy line that had defined handheld gaming for over 15 years. Fun fact, the Game Boy Micro featured removable faceplates, letting players customize its look, something no other Nintendo handheld had ever done. In 2006, Nintendo changed the way people played games. The Nintendo Wii introduced motion controls that let players swing, bowl, and dance their way through games like Wii Sports and Just Dance. It wasn't about powerful graphics. It was about bringing everyone together. Families, friends, even grandparents joined in on the fun. The Wii turned living rooms into playgrounds and proved that gaming could be for everyone. Fun fact, the Wii became one of the best-selling consoles of all time, outselling both the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, all thanks to its simple idea: make gaming fun and accessible for everyone. After the success of the original DS, Nintendo refined the design with the sleek DS Lite, and later introduced the DSi, adding cameras, online features, and a digital store. Each version made the DS family smarter, brighter, and more connected than ever. Fun fact, the DS lineup became one of the best-selling handheld families in history, with over 150 million units sold worldwide. In 2011, Nintendo took handheld gaming into the third dimension with the Nintendo 3DS. For the first time ever, players could experience 3D visuals without wearing any special glasses. It also introduced features like Street Pass and an eShop, making gaming more social and connected. With hits like Pokémon X and Y, Animal Crossing, New Leaf, and Super Mario 3D Land, the 3DS became one of Nintendo's most beloved handhelds. Fun fact, the 3DS could play all previous DS games, meaning players carried an entire generation of memories right in their pocket. In 2012, Nintendo followed up the Wii with the Wii U, a bold step that introduced a new kind of controller, a touchscreen gamepad that worked as both a controller and a second screen. It promised a new way to play, blending TV and handheld experiences. But despite its creativity, the Wii U struggled to find its audience. Still, it laid the groundwork for something even greater: the Nintendo Switch. Fun fact, the Wii U was the first Nintendo console to support full HD graphics, and its gamepad concept directly inspired the design of the Switch. In 2013, Nintendo released the 2DS, a simpler, more affordable version of the 3DS. It dropped the 3D feature and foldable design, but kept all the same great games. Designed for younger players, it made Nintendo's handheld world even more accessible. Fun fact, despite its name, the 2DS could still play every 3DS game, just without the 3D effect. In 2017, Nintendo changed gaming forever with the Nintendo Switch. A true hybrid console you could play anytime, anywhere. At home, it worked like a traditional console, but in seconds, you could lift it from the dock and keep playing on the go. With instant multiplayer using detachable Joy-Cons and hit games like The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, and Super Mario Odyssey, the Switch became a cultural phenomenon, blending power, portability, and pure fun like never before. Fun fact, the Switch was so successful that it outsold nearly every Nintendo console before it, becoming one of the best-selling systems in gaming history. In 2019, Nintendo introduced the Switch Lite, a smaller, lighter, handheld-only version of the Switch. It traded TV play for portability, making it perfect for gaming on the go. With its colorful design and lower price, the Switch Lite brought the hybrid experience to even more players around the world. Fun fact, unlike the original Switch, the Joy-Cons on the Switch Lite are built in, so the whole console feels like one solid, compact device. In 2021, Nintendo refined its hybrid console once more with the Switch OLED. Featuring a vibrant 7-inch OLED display, enhanced audio, and a sturdier design, it made every game look and feel better than ever. It wasn't a new generation, but a premium evolution, proving that the Switch still had plenty of life left to play. Fun fact, the OLED model's screen delivers deeper colors and sharper contrast, making classics like Zelda and Mario Kart look more stunning than ever, even after years on the market. In 2025, Nintendo steps forward with the Switch 2, the next evolution of the hybrid console. It keeps what made the original Switch great, the ability to play at home or on the go, but adds serious upgrades under the hood. A larger 7.9-inch screen with HDR and 120 Hz refresh rate in handheld mode gives sharper visuals. Docked, it can push 4K output for TVs. Internal storage jumps to 256 GB, and graphics benefits from NVIDIA technology, including DLSS upscaling and even ray tracing support. New Joy-Cons with magnetic attachments and improved buttons bring better feel and durability. Plus, features like Game Chat and better speakers make it more connected and immersive than ever. Fun fact, the Switch 2 supports backward compatibility. So many of your existing Switch games still work. It's Nintendo's way of bridging generations without leaving players behind. From simple pixels on the Game & Watch to the stunning worlds of the Nintendo Switch 2, Nintendo's journey has always been about one thing: imagination. For over 4 decades, they've redefined how we play, connect, and dream. Each console wasn't just a new machine, it was a new chapter in gaming history. And if there's one thing Nintendo has proven again and again, it's that the fun will never stop. It just keeps evolving.